Hey, fellow leaders, you know what this bell is for? It is our wake up call. As you know, the world is shifting at a lightning speed. Technology is rewiring the rules. Generations are colliding in values and expectations. AI revolution is totally unfolding right in front of our eyes, and it is going to flip our world upside down before we can blink. So, in this storm, the question isn't if this change will hit you. It is how prepared you will be when it does. Will you be the leader who panics, or will you be the leader who transforms pressure into the greatest possibilities? That is why we created the show, is to give you the greatest opportunity in the history of leadership. Right now, if you know how to lead with clarity, courage, and with higher consciousness, you are going to be able to transform any of these storms and make it your biggest advantage. So, the show is going to get you ready to be the next superconscious leader of this planet. Remember, in the age of AI, you do not need to be superhuman. You just need to be superconscious. Welcome to a Superconscious Leader. I am Dr. Adil Dalal. You're watching Now Media Television. Welcome to the show. Today we have an amazing guest who is not only a trailblazer in business but also in social justice. Nicole Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Nicole, for coming in and granting us this interview. As you know, my audience, I'll give them a little bit of highlight of your career, and then you can jump in and talk a little bit about yourself. So, Nicole is a founder and CEO of Mend HR Solutions, a nationally recognized HR and recruiting firm, and the founder of Love Inspiring Life. What a beautiful name. A nonprofit dedicated to combating sexual exploitation and trafficking. She's an author, speaker, award winning change maker who's been featured on slew of TV shows and even on Forbes. So, Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to speak on leadership with you.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole, let's jump in and talk a little bit about your background. I'm really amazed that you have a business side to you and also the social justice, which is so important today in today's world. So, thank you, and that kind of is one of the perfect leaders who is super conscious because it just goes beyond the bottom line, right? Beyond the profit and loss statements. So, uh,
I,
can you
I
give,
agree.
can you give a little bit about your background, please?
Absolutely. So I've been in the human resources field for over 20 years. And nine and a half years ago, I went out on my own and decided to start my HR recruiting firm, my HR and recruiting firm. And the reason for that is putting the human back in human resources. I experienced a lot of companies that just did not focus on the employees, and I knew that there was a better way to human resources. And so I started my company and started. I've worked with over 350 large, medium, small, and startup companies over the last 9 years, and I've helped them in leadership. I've helped them in everything that they've needed, and put my expertise and my human factor um, into what we were doing. And then 3 years ago, we I had already always known that I was going to open a nonprofit. I just didn't
Mhm.
really know the focus of it. And then we opened one to do women's conferences to support women in leadership, and it changed into and slowly morphed into being a voice for those who have been sexually exploited and trafficking. And so that is what we do with our nonprofit now. So we provide resources, we provide all types of things for individuals who have been involved or people that you don't know that have been involved. We do intelligence to try to find those individuals. And so that's what our mission is to hopefully
Wow.
at some point eradicate that industry.
Oh my God, this is so wonderful. I mean, what you're doing is really so much needed today, and it's sadly, there is a good side of humanity, and there is a ugly side of humanity, and you're doing something to help the right people. So thank you very much, Nicole.
It's my pleasure.
Uh, Nicole, from the leadership point of view, communication is one of the most important things in communication. Even good communicators, what I've found is they tend to wait too long to really get their voice out there or to make some decisions. Could you, give us a little bit of information, because I am guilty of the same thing sometimes. I take a little too long if it's a tough conversation, you sometimes just delay it as long as you can, because you feel you don't want to hurt others, or you don't want to get into that difficult situation. What do you recommend leaders, how should they situation, please?
So I think the main reason that leaders don't have those conversations is because of comfortability, right? Like they're not comfortable having those conversations, and then they come into the fear of confrontation because they don't know how generally the conversation is going to go. And so if someone starts becoming aggressive confrontational, they don't
Hmm.
know how to handle that. So I think that the reason they wait too long is out of fear. I do know that there's a piece of waiting for those conversations for the right moment because you have a big project everybody's working on, or you're coming into the end of the year. There's little nuances like that that sometimes affect why communication isn't given to the employees. However, the majority of the time, it's not given because of the comfortability of it.
I see. That is really, yeah, I agree with you totally. What is the damage leaders do if they wait too long to have those conversations?
Well, I think that depends on what the conversation is about, right? Like the damage is going to be different if there's major changes within the organization and those aren't communicated properly. Then the organization then poses the risk of people leaving because they didn't have enough
Mhm.
information. If you have employees that it's a performance situation and they're underperforming and they're causing havoc on the team, then you run the risk of damaging the team and trust and leadership because of that. And I think that sometimes the damage that can be done from lack of communication affects the bottom line. It really does. It affects productivity. It affects performance. It affects all the way. It it affects all the way around.
No, I totally agree with you, and I think again, I think the I'm guilty of waiting too long. If even if I know that a person is not performing, waiting too long to let people could also be disastrous, because it just festers, and as you correctly pointed out, sometimes it does impact the performance of the team. So, what is the mindset a leader should have as they get into this kind of a conversation? Uh, How should they approach this?
Well, I think they should have all the information, right? Like, know exactly what communication needs to be provided. Sometimes I will recommend to leaders, like, create a PowerPoint and do a workflow. Like, this is
Mm.
what we have to do. This is how we have to do it, and this is by when we have to do it. And
Right.
especially for big, large um, changes or things that need to be communicated for performance
Right.
reasons or talking directly to the team. I think having a plan, like even if you do a small plan on your on Word or something, like these are my talking points, this is what I'm going to
Yeah.
say, this is when I'm going to say it. I think that the plan around communicating helps make it more effective, and then it gives you a little bit more comfortability when we have to have the not so good conversations with employees, with my clients. I always have them scripted out first. I have the leader script out what they want to say, how they want to say it, and then I review it, and then we move forward from there. And that way they know exactly what
Mm.
what they're going to say, and then I'm there to help support some of the questions that might come up.
That is a smart move. That really helps you kind of plan it out quite well. Uh, how does a leader balance honesty with empathy? Because sometimes, being too honest can hurt others. What do you recommend that?
This is where that human factor comes in, right? Like I always say, there was a time that you were an employee, and there was a time that you were somebody that had to look up to leadership, that had to listen to leadership. And so I want you to remember that feeling and how you felt when you were when somebody was having those conversations with you. And I make them go back in and think, internally. And then once they do that, I think that it's a lot easier to come out and say, okay, I understand where you're at, but this is the information that I have to give you. And we have to have a conversation and be as honest as possible. But if there's confidential stuff that you can't share, then don't share it. But be as honest as possible, but also remember that you were in their spot at one point.
Do you think HR has got a bad rep?
Oh, of course it does. Like I've read all the chats. I've read all the Reddits and all the TikToks of people doing nothing but complaining about HR. So I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, I think that yes, they do, and any meeting which HR is in, everyone antenna is all the way up, right? Because
Mhm.
they presume that they are noting down everything they're saying, which may be true. So no, this is great. So thank you very much, Nicole. Very good start to the program. Let's take a quick break, and we will come back on a super conscious leader. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight, turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to a super conscious leader. Want more of what you're watching? Stay connected to a super conscious leader and every Now Media TV favorite, live or on demand, anytime you like. Download the free Now Media TV app, or you can watch the show on Roku, iOS, or basically watch it on any of your favorite podcast shows Roku, iHeartRadio, any other channel you would love to watch it on, or you can also watch it on nowmedia.tv. Do not miss any of the Superconscious Leader. Airs every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central. We're back with Nicole Anderson. Nicole, we had a fantastic conversation in the first segment. In this segment, I wanted to delve a little bit about a lighter topic. You have written a very, very interesting book called HR is Sexy. So, it kind of is opposite to what we were talking about HR in the first segment. So, just what made you write that book, and can you give us a little bit of insight into that book, please?
So I wanted people to see that there was a different way to do HR. Like it didn't have to be done the 80s, 90s, and early 2000 ways where it's like that person does papers, discipline, and fires people. And that you can get HR more involved in the human aspect. And that
Hmm.
us HR leaders, we're able to be more entrepreneur with our business owners and help our business owners make decisions that affect their business. And so I decided to write the book. It's written in 3 sections. So it's written for leadership, human resources, and employees. So it gives employees kind of, a way of like how to be an employee. It gives HR and how you should be HR, and then leaders how they should, in an ever evolving workforce or workplace,
Hmm.
become better leaders. And I think that it's just driving home the point that we don't have to do everything the way that it's always been done.
Correct. So it's a new way of thinking, putting a different kind of a prism on HR, which is really important, right?
Yeah,
Today,
and I
it's
use a lot of sports analogies because I'm a
what you
huge
do.
sports fan.
That's
Yeah, so
fantastic.
there's a lot of sports analogies in there.
Awesome. And so, Nicole, if employee who is wanting to have a tough conversation with HR, what advice would you give in your book, or in general, to an employee who wants to have a very difficult conversation there?
So I would say to the employee, the first thing is make sure you have everything down that you need, as much information as possible that you need to have that
Hmm.
conversation about. I think the employees need to understand the expectations as well, right? Like they need to have their expectations of what's going to happen. So they need to do their research and understand that whatever, like what their complaint is, whether it's discrimination, what it's harassment, different things like that. Like I think that they really need to educate themselves. And then they need to understand that HR is probably not going to have the answer at that moment. And I think on the HR side of it, the HR person definitely needs to be able to provide transparent information about what the employee can expect throughout the process. I think that because HR has such a bad rap, that employees are unsure, don't want to go to HR because they don't feel that anything's going to get done. And in most cases, that does happen. And I truly apologize to those employees that had that
Hmm.
issue. However, if they don't say anything, it just makes everything worse for them, because it's bottled up. They don't perform well. They're miserable. Nobody wants to come to work and work 40 hours and be miserable. So I think the advice is, go in, having done your research, have the information on hand, and then provide it to the HR representative.
Excellent. Really good advice, Nicole. Thank you. What is the quirkiest situation you had to face as a HR person, or the quirkiest decision you had to make?
I think that, like, I could probably write 3 books, maybe 4
Oh, wow.
on, like, I told somebody last week that I always think that I've seen it all, and then all of a sudden I get something else, and I'm like, "Well, nope, I haven't seen it all yet." Um, I think
Uh,
the quirkiest decision I've ever had to make was I had an employee one time that bragged to another employee that she poisoned her own food.
wow.
And so I called the employee into the to the office, obviously, and said, "Hey, we had an anonymous letter under our door that said that you poisoned your own food." And she goes, yeah, because somebody was stealing my food. And I was like, okay. I was like, could you have told us first that somebody was stealing your food? And she goes, well, it happened 6 months ago. And I'm like, you just now poisoned your food? And she looked at me and I said, you do realize that that's a crime, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a legitimate crime to poison your own food. She goes, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, it is. And I said,
Wow.
yeah, so that was probably, I mean, we had to fire her, obviously. Um, and so that's probably like the quirkiest thing I can say. Like, I was not prepared for somebody to tell me they poisoned their own food.
I would not be prepared for something like that either.
No, and I
Wow.
was like, I mean, I knew it was a crime, but I had to go do my
Yeah.
own research afterwards to kind of find out what our next steps were. But I told her that, like, there's a complaint process, go through that. We could have put cameras
Yeah.
by the refrigerator, to catch whoever was taking your food, but to poison,
Yes.
I mean, if somebody did take it and you had poisoned your food, you could have killed them.
Absolutely. Wow. That's, I mean, immature of this person, right? Probably didn't know what they were doing. um,
Or they just didn't care.
yeah. What was the toughest decision? Have you ever? What's the highest level of a leader you had to ever fire or reprimand in an organization?
I've had to fire CEOs. I've had to fire the top
Are you
people.
joking? Wow.
No, I
How does
am not
that work?
joking.
How does
Um,
that work?
so
Do you go to their office or they come to your office?
normally I will tell you, probably. So I'm sure you've seen, there's a movie with George Clooney where that's what he does, is he drives around the country and fires people at C-suites.
Up in the air? I think, is it up in
Yeah,
the
up
air?
in the air.
Yeah.
And so I do that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Wow.
So I have, the toughest one I had to do was I had to fire an entire C-suite.
Oh my God.
We
Wow.
called them into the boardroom, and I had to let them all go. Very valid reasons. The company was not doing well, and then they found out that the majority of the C-suite was embezzling the money. And we had the facts, so I pulled them all in the conference room, and I let every one of them go. And that was probably the toughest because, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, there was like 5 or 6 C-suite individuals. And then after that, after they were terminated, the board asked me to fire the CEO as well, because it had happened right
Wow.
under his
Under
nose.
his watch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's probably the
So,
toughest.
but the CEO is your boss, correct? So you
Not
have to call him.
necessarily.
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Okay.
It depends on who hires me.
Correct.
Um, and sometimes owners aren't
Yeah,
CEOs, right?
that's true.
So
I work with those.
sometimes board of directors hire me to come
Yeah.
in and make changes. And so they oversee the C-suite. And in some companies, the CEO is the owner, and, I have not fired them. I
Yeah.
have had difficult conversations with them on how they need to change their behavior if they want their organization to be successful.
Excellent. Nicole, very, very insightful and fun conversation. How can my audience find you?
So they can absolutely find me on Instagram, Nicole Anderson 5, or on LinkedIn, Nicole Anderson 5 HR. Our website, mendhr.com, or HR answers at mendhr.com.
And how can they find out more about your nonprofit, please?
Loveinspiringlife.org. There is a lot of information on there. And then our Instagram page is Guarding Innocence.
Excellent. And last but not the least, your book. Where can they find your book?
Amazon, the original online bookstore. So they can find it on Amazon, and they can purchase it in paperback or hardback.
Excellent. Okay, folks, do not go anywhere. We'll be right back with a Superconscious leader. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight, turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to A Superconscious Leader. You can catch us every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central. And if you missed the show, you can always download the Roku iOS or watch us on podcast, your favorite podcast station, or go to nowmedia.tv and watch us there. We're back with a special guest today, Nicole Anderson, a specialist in HR and also in social justice. So, wanted to just talk to Nicole a little bit about what is the missing piece in HR today. Corporations, as we are getting into the world of AI, we're getting into a a world which is shifting very rapidly. I think the rug under leaders is being pulled very rapidly right now. There's a tsunami of all the technological changes which are happening. How will they stay human? What is, I believe that mind, body, spirit is important. And I ask most of my guests is, what about the spirit part? Why is that missing from corporations today? What would you say?
Well, I think that there's this unwritten rule that politics and religion and spirituality stays out of the workplace, and the reason is it because it can create very heated discussions and conversations. And everybody has their opinion, they have their right to speak and their right to say what they feel about that. And especially with the political climate that we have now, like it gets really heated really fast. And I think that that's the hard and fast rule. But I think that most companies will allow the conversation to happen, but I don't think that there's much desire to allow it to come in fully and allow that to assist in helping promote the business or help the business perform with the employees. Now, there have been very successful companies that have brought religion and spirituality into their business. I think it's easier if you're a startup and starting that culture versus not having that culture and then all of a sudden implementing that culture into your company, because then you have this shock value that happens.
No, I totally agree with you. Is that owners have a little more kind of leeway in getting this in, and at an earlier stage, if they keep it non-denominational and not focus on a particular religion. But to me, religion and spirituality are very separate. So, for example, if have you encountered any company which has said, "Hey, let's put in a meditation program or a yoga program for our workforce"? What would you say to them?
So I've seen that a lot more in your tech companies that are a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more, not so corporate. They want to be a little more casual. I have seen that implement. Sometimes with corporate health benefits, they offer the ability for companies to have this wellness mind body sessions that come into the workplace and provide these. And I think they're very successful when they're done. The problem is that it becomes really expensive for most organizations to be able to upkeep that type of um, mind body wellness. But if they can utilize what the health insurance plans offer, then it could help curb some of that cost.
And Nicole, firsthand, have you seen any benefits of these kind of programs being implemented in an organization?
So personally, no, but statistically, yes.
Okay.
If you read any of the research of the companies that do put these programs in place, then you will see the trend towards better performance, less
Mhm.
stressed employees. Health visits are down because employees aren't as stressed. Mental health in the workplace, so you find more people that are able to handle things better, and emotional intelligence falls into that as well.
And absenteeism, right? There is a direct
Oh
impact on
yeah,
the corporations. And
yes.
actually, what you're saying is right. I talk a lot about stress, and because I'm seeing that I work across 25 different countries, and I've seen stress go up sky high everywhere. And the statistics also says that there's $1 trillion lost in economy per year on due
Oh
to
yeah.
stress and due to anxiety. So these kind of programs, and one of the book I've written is on power of visualization. I think that's another tool which corporations are not using to really get people centered and get them into that understanding that there is more to it than just the left brain, the logical brain. They need to start using creativity and other tools to really get the productivity and the performance up for them. Uh, so I'm hoping that in future corporations start employing some of these things because there are direct benefits to them. And do you see HR taking a leading role in that ever, where they would say, let's put in some rules and regulations. Let's write about that, Nicole.
Yeah, let's write about that.
How
I
does
mean,
that
I would
feel about
I would
HR?
love I would love to see it. I really would. I would love to see HR moving more into the wellness and mind, body, and spirit, right? And understanding human emotion and being able to be a proponent. A lot of HR
Right.
people will argue budgets and funds, right? They will say that the company doesn't allocate enough funds to us and we won't be able to do this. But if they could
Mm.
take the statistics and show it
I agree.
to an executive team, it's like a no-brainer.
It's a
It really
no-brainer.
is. Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Absolutely. It's the numbers are there, but it needs a little bit, more kind of risk taking because there is, some employees may come back and say, I didn't sign up for that, and so making it voluntary could be another option for them to do that. And
Yes.
Nicole, shifting a little bit to what you're doing with the nonprofit. Uh, that is a totally different field of what you're trying to do with it. Do you see exploitation of this kind even in workplaces, and
Oh,
how
yes.
it's sad that it happens even today? How do you curb that? How do you proactively give us a story or something which you encountered and how you handle them?
So in the workplace, there's a little bit more structure around it. Typically there's a little bit more structure around what we can find out, what information we have. And a lot of the companies that we go in, they already have policies in place, or the technology where you can see what website somebody is going to.
Right.
But when you have in a workplace and you work with customers and you work with people from the outside, you tend to see things or observe things that are like just not normal in like,
Mhm.
and being able to call that out and do something. And we did have an organization that I worked with that had a situation of what could have potentially been an exploitation abuse scenario. And so they brought that information to us. We worked with leadership team. We found out that there wasn't much that we could do from a company perspective. But in order to help employees feel more comfortable about addressing those issues when they happen, is set up sex trafficking training and sexual exploitation training. And I know, like in a lot of areas in a lot of cities in the US, there are organizations that can provide that training to help companies, especially those who work with the public, identify when there are issues arising. But I think in the workplace, just continue monitoring. I think the hardest part is if somebody's doing something outside of work that you're not aware of, and then they're coming into work, and then all of a sudden you find out they were arrested for a situation. As an organization, there's not much you could have done to prevent that at the workplace. However, making sure that you have all your things in place with IT, your policies, your procedures, and then putting trainings in place that help.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a sad part where HR needs to get involved. But have you seen it in the reverse order, where women bosses are also exploiting a male? Have you ever encountered that?
Yes, it happens. It happens quite often. It is.
Wow.
Yeah, it does. And a lot of people don't see it or understand it, but it's a power dynamic is typically what it is.
Exactly.
Someone has some power, and so now they are going to exploit or harass or do something to get what they need out of somebody that is somebody else, and that somebody else happens to be a male.
Wow. That is a immediate firing, right? As soon as you find out.
As soon as you find out, you can prove it. Obviously, you have to be able to prove that there was no consent or anything like that. And then once you do that, then yes, you can terminate immediately.
I had to do there was a male. He was a temporary employee, but he was harassing a lady in our workplace. But we didn't know for almost 6 months. She never mentioned anything. And we came to know through the grapevine, HR and I was a vice president at that time, and we got to the room, we questioned her, we questioned a few other people. And that very same day, that person was let go. But, she could have mentioned that early on. She could have avoided a lot of the things which happened to her, sadly. So sometimes speaking up on time can be very helpful for the HR people too, right? It
Absolutely. And I think people are under the impression a lot of times that vendors, vendors or people that come into the business, like it's not considered workplace harassment or workplace sexual exploitation or harassment, but that's just not the case. And so like if somebody has a vendor or somebody from outside that is harassing them, they need to report it immediately, because that is something that can be taken serious and it can be fixed. But I think a lot of times employees miss that aspect of it, and they're like, well, they don't work for the company, so there's nothing that can be done. And there absolutely can and will, should
be done immediately. Absolutely. Great. Thank you very much. I think, Nicole, in the final segment, I want to get a little bit into the AI and how our world is going to change, and why, the need for super consciousness is so important in leadership today. So, folks, do not go anywhere. We'll be back with Nicole Anderson and go deep into what super conscious leadership will be in the age of AI. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to A Superconscious Leader. Don't miss a second of the show or any of the Now Media TV favorites, streaming live or on demand whenever and wherever you are. Grab the Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and enjoy instant access to the lineup of bilingual programs, both in English and in Spanish. If you prefer podcasts, the Superconscious Leader is also available on the Now Media website or on Roku app or iHeartRadio app. Please do not miss any shows because you are going to be at a loss of superconscious leadership techniques, which we are talking with guests like Nicole Anderson. So, Nicole, welcome back to A Superconscious Leader. In the final segment, I want to get a little bit about the AI. What are your thoughts on the impact of AI and leadership? What will be that blend of leadership which will be needed in future?
So the interesting thing is I attend bi-weekly, I attend a CEO leadership think tank. And we talk about technology and AI and things. And, it's a very mixed version of people loving it and people hating it. And so all of them are leaders, right? And I think that, for the most part, people are a little scared of it. They're a little intimidated, especially the leaders. But if they could realize like how much it could help propel them in their leadership abilities,
Sure.
I think more would be excited about using it. But it's even like when we went going back to our first part of our interview where we were talking about the transparency and not really understanding what the communication process would be. I don't think they really truly understand that it's a tool and that it can be used to help them even in communications with the employees. I tend to be a little bit more blunt and straightforward. And sometimes, and it's not for any reason other than you ask me a question, I'm giving you an answer, right? And so it helps to kind of soften that, right? And make, like, I can use AI I put my sentence in and I say, hey, make this more compassionate. And so at that point, AI will shoot out something that's more compassionate and that sounds better to the employee. So I think that for leaders, it can be used as a tool to help propel their leadership if they use it correctly. And to not be scared of it. Go in and do some research. They have free online classes or very inexpensive online classes now that you can take for it.
Totally agree. I think there's a lot of fear on AI. And I just released a book called Lean AI. Applied AI is the way to go. But I'm also very, to be honest, I do a lot of research on neuroscience of AI and how it will impact human brains. And that scares me a little bit because there is going to be a lot of impact. It depends on how we use it, especially our younger generation will be impacted, quite a bit. From a leader's point of view, I really believe what you're saying is absolutely correct. They need to embrace it. But at the same time, I think trust, privacy, ethics, those things will come out, very, very important in the future of AI and leadership. if it's very easy to break the trust, to do things which are not ethical. I'll give you an example from the employee side. Cloning has become very
Oh,
easy. So a remote employee could be there and you would not even know if it's a clone or it's come to that level. I'm telling you, I work a lot with AI and I'm telling it is very difficult to tell fake versus real, and a clone versus a real person. Where do you think, put your HR hat on, Nicole, and tell me, how will you solve that problem in future?
whew, it's already difficult, and it's interesting because I just had this conversation this morning with friends. So it's so
Okay.
funny. So we so there's an organization that I work with
Hmm.
that employees are not allowed to take photos inside the office, no video,
Wow.
things like that. And when an employee posted something on social media,
Hmm.
and the photo looked as though it was from inside the building.
Oh, wow.
However, that some AI photos seem a bit clearer or more pristine than like a
Yes.
regular like selfie or something like that. We could not tell at all if this was a real or a fake image. And so in order to do this, like we had to ask the employee, is this AI? Is this real? Is the employee going to admit that it's a
No,
real
no.
photo? We don't know. We have not gotten a response back on it. But I'm definitely going to keep people updated on how I believe that it is AI,
Yeah.
just because there's a few aspects of it. So I think in the workplace, it's going to become very difficult to be able to prove, is something AI, is it real, which then can make disciplinary action very difficult and challenging.
Yeah. Also, could be very easy for another employee to frame an employee or a leader
Yes,
with a
yes,
fake picture out there, because once it's out there, people, it's like, it's over, right?
it
To
is.
It's very difficult to prove otherwise, and sometimes already actions are taken because companies don't want to be liable for anything, so they make immediate action, but it could be the wrong decision. So again, Nicole, what are we going to do? I know you love AI and I do too, but these are the challenges. That's why I say is, leaders will need to be super conscious. There has to be some other element which they will need to start using beyond what our current senses are to go ahead in future.
Well, I think we use AI to determine whether something is real or fake, right? I think we try to do that, and I'm pretty certain I just gave somebody a multi-million-dollar idea. So just remember where you got it from when you become a multimillionaire.
I'm a super conscious leader.
I'm a super conscious leader. Um, but I do believe that there's going to be a way that you're going to be able to come back and
Yeah.
show or be able to tell something is real or fake. I know like already in like some language, right, that people use in their writings and stuff like that, we can really tell that it's AI. Because I'm like, wait a second, you don't talk like that in person. Like at all. I was like, so I have one company that actually has a policy that they have to identify that they've
Yeah.
used AI.
Yeah, and also AI lies quite a bit. It hallucinates and it tries to give you, there have been a lot of legal
Oh yeah.
challenges, a lot of lawyers have been disbarred because they use totally wrong briefs. ChatGPT made it up and they didn't
Yep.
double check. But I've also seen it the other way, Nicole, is AI tends to score. So there is a software which would tell you it's an LLM, but it will basically say if you're using a lot of AI, and it scores, even if you have written it yourself, it sometimes scores it that it is a AI generated. So what do you do in that? It's still not a science. That is the problem.
No,
So,
and it's interesting. I was doing an AR, I was doing a lecture,
mhm.
and in the lecture we were pulling up and doing active AI while we were in the room.
Right.
because it was for HR people.
Okay.
And we asked it a question. It actually pulled stuff from my book.
Oh, really?
Yes, the stuff like
Wow.
I was like, is this real? And
Yeah.
it wasn't my computer. So it wasn't like
Right.
AI knew that it was me directly
Yeah.
speaking to it. And I was like in shock. I was like, oh my gosh, it pulled my book. Like,
Wow.
and so I found it really interesting. It did give me credit though. I will say,
That's
like
good.
it
At
did,
least.
yeah, it did give me credit. It
Yeah.
did give me, the whole bibliography that it needed to
Yeah.
have. But I was just shocked.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is me on
That's
ChatGPT.
interesting, right? Yeah. It knows us, right? Because through the
Yeah.
books and through our writing, I write a lot for LinkedIn, I write for Forbes, and it starts quoting me in a lot of things which I am trying to research too, which is very interesting to see that. Uh, Let me take you a little bit. A few years from now, just put yourself into this situation. You are sitting in your HR chair, and then there is a human being comes in and a robot comes in. Okay, and they have a conflict. How are you going to handle that? Because this is my, in my talk, I say it'll become HRNR, human robotics resources, right? Because it is human and robot resources, because no longer it will be just human. So
I'm gonna ask
where
AI
I
for
thought
help.
you're going to ask AI for help. So what do you think it will support, Nicole?
It's definitely going to support the robot. I
Yeah,
think, I think in that scenario, it definitely is going to be difficult,
yeah,
because, AI and robots are supposed to be smarter than us, but
yes,
they still don't have human emotion.
yeah,
I think care with the employee is the first step,
right,
is care with the employee and letting them understand that we're going to work through this, and we're going to do
yeah,
what we can. However, there is, the AI robot is probably going to be right, by this point. So it's like, okay, we've
it,
got to kind of take it from there.
yeah. It's not futuristic at all. It's happening. A lot of companies. There are a few companies which have 50% robots and 50% human beings already. So there have been cases where robots needed lower temperatures. Humans, cannot perform. Guess who won? It's the robots who won. Machines are more expensive.
Yes.
Understand? So that's what's going to happen. Is in future, HR is going to have to shift thinking in a different way. Uh, it's not out of the ordinary. So, where do you think, when I talk about superconscious leadership, what are your thoughts? What comes to your mind?
I think it's as a leader, I think it's learning about yourself subconsciously, right?
Mhm.
Understanding the things that you do and the way that you act subconsciously that you don't necessarily see happen, but other people may see it happen. And I think it's about just identifying those subconscious behaviors and actions that you have
Mhm.
and being more mindful of it so that when you have the ability to impact a workplace or impact an employee, or the life cycle of an organization, that you're doing it the best possible way instead of from a hurt or trauma place.
Very true. And I think EQ, bringing the whole self, the mind, body, spirit, because the only thing I feel, the AI will have a better mind and probably a better body than us. What is
Yes.
left is our the spirit which we can bring to work, and that is the differentiator which we'll have in the future. Is because I really believe AI is far superior to us in a lot of ways, right? I mean, we don't have
Oh,
access to the World Wide Web. We don't have access to all the books out there and everything. And we don't have a metal body. We are not the Iron Man, which will happen in future.
yes.
So
Well,
so we'll be definitely at a disadvantage as we go along, and that is why I think I really want to educate the leaders. Is you will need to perform in a different way. You will need to bring something else to the game. It won't be enough to just be yourself as you are right now. The game is changing very quickly. So you agree?
I do 100%.
Great. So Nicole, once more, how do my audience find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at Nicole Anderson 5, LinkedIn, Nicole Anderson HR. They can find me at mendhr.com, as well as HR answers at mendhr.com. And then if you want to find out more about our nonprofit that is doing a lot in the anti-sexual exploitation and trafficking arena, they can find it at loveinspiringlife.org.
Thank you, Nicole. Pleasure to have you on my show. Thank you, folks, for watching A Superconscious Leader. Remember, in the age of AI, you do not need to be superhuman. You just need to be superconscious.